Good morning, friends. Myself, Dr. Vijender Singh Tamar, Associate Professor in English. Presently, I have been posted at Government College Guda in the Jhansi district, Rajasthan. In the series of video lectures which I am preparing, this video is meant for Class BA Part 2nd, Subject English Literature, Paper 1st, and it is a question on the poem There is a Pleasure in the Pathless Woods, written by Lord Byron. The question generally comes in the form of critical appreciation, sometimes is love for nature. So both questions can be answered from the material which we will discuss in this video. First of all, whenever we give the answer of any question in literature on a poet or on an author, first of all, we give introduction to the poet or author. Here, the introduction to the poet. George Gordon Byron, generally known as Lord Byron, has carved out a niche for himself in English literature. In other words, he has made a permanent place for himself in English language, in literature. He is one of the greatest 5 romantic poets of English language. The other 4 beings Shelley, Keats, Wordsworth, and Coleridge. He lived just for 36 years. That is, he died very young. He was born in 1788 and died in 1824. He was famous in life for aristocratic excesses, including huge debts, numerous love affairs, rumors of scandalous, incestuous liaison with his half-sister, that is stepsister, and self-imposed exile. He was very handsome and he was liked by the women of the time. About him, Lady Caroline Lamb has aptly remarked that he was mad, bad, and dangerous to know. He was revolutionary by nature. He was a great champion of political liberty. His poetry and personality captured the imagination of Europe. He became hero. People started worshipping him. He delighted his thousands of readers with his romances in verse. In 1815, he married a year after he and his wife separated. Then a storm of scandals broke out. Byron had love affairs with a number of women, one after the other. The very public which loaded him with extreme praise now called him a monster of wickedness. From a hero, he became a villain. That is, his life was full of worries and problems. His heart was an embittered one. So he left England with an embittered heart, and the rest of the life he spent as a traveler of the continent. It was during these years of exile that his greatest poetic work was produced. In the end, weary of everything, of fame, of poetry, even of himself, he traveled to fight against the Ottoman Empire in the Greek War of Independence. That is, he fought for the Greeks or with the Greeks against the Ottoman Empire just to get political liberty. And he got ill and he died. And Greeks, for his contribution, revered him as a national hero. Such was a personality of Lord Byron. Now about the poem. The poem, which has been entitled There is a Pleasure in the Pathless Woods, is not a complete poem in itself. It is an extract, it is a part of a big poem entitled Child Harold's Pilgrimage. The poet, that is Lord Byron, wrote this poem describing his experiences of the travels, and it was published in 1812 with two cantos, Canto 1 and Canto 2. Then he enlarged it, and in 1816 he published the third canto. In 1818 he published the last and the fourth canto of the poem. The present poem formed the last 9 stanza of the Canto 4, which was published in 1818. In this poem, the poet has described his love for nature, his love for sea, for forest, and other objects of nature. The poet says that he gets pleasure, delight in the inaccessible woods. That is when there is no path or visible, but he enjoy in that forest. There is a joy in being all alone by the seashore. He loves the company of the deep sea and its roaring music because he is alone there. No one can interfere, no one intrudes, because he finds himself all alone in the company of nature. He does not feel alone. Here, nature is his spiritual companionship. He confesses, and he has written a very remarkable line which has become proverb. I love no man the less, but nature more. In a different sense, the poet loves man, but he is more in love with nature. He forgets his present and his past in the company of nature. In the presence of nature, when he mixes in the universe, some thoughts come to his mind. He cannot express these thoughts, although he can not even conceal these thoughts. What the poet wants to say, that we human beings live in society, and sometimes society creates so many problems that it is very difficult to live peacefully for us. All the time those worries haunts our mind. But the poet says when he is in the company of nature, he forgets every worry of his life and enjoy the company of nature. Addressing the ocean, Byron says that man has not been able to make a conquest of the ocean in spite of all his power and means. Man is regarded as great scientific researcher who has invented very destructive weapons. They can destroy within a fluctuation of second the whole earth. But poet claims that human beings and his weapons cannot destroy ocean. Man can spread ruin on earth, but not on the bosom of the ocean. Man's deadly armaments, that is weapon, may shatter the walls of cities built high on rocks and strike terror in the hearts of monarchs, as he writes. The armaments which thunder strike the walls of rock-built cities, bidding nations quake, and monarchs tremble in their capitals. The ocean is uncontrollable, terrible, energetic, unlimited, and unchangeable. That is, the ocean is same as it was at the first day of its creation. No change has taken place in the ocean. Though thousands of ships plow the ocean's breast, they cannot impede its onward rush or inflict any injury on it. The sea has power to destroy man in a moment. The ocean can send man to its bottom. A drowning man gets no grave. Church bells are not rung at his death. As the poet writes, roll on thou deep dark blue ocean roll. 10,000 plates sweep over thee in vain. Man marks the earth with ruin. His control stops with the shore upon the watery plain. The wrecks are all thy deed, nor doth remain. The idea is human beings are powerless before the power of ocean. Human beings cannot do anything or cannot cause any harm, injury to ocean, but ocean can do anything to human beings. Byron gives his impression of the ocean as a glorious mirror in which the form of Almighty God manifests itself in tempest. Thou glorious mirror, where Almighty's form glasses itself in tempest. The idea is, he says, it is so powerful that it can be called a kind of reflection of the power of God, whom no one can defeat. Man appears insignificant before the force or power of the ocean, as Byron writes. Like a drop of rain, he sinks into thy depths with bubbling groan, without a grain, unnailed, uncoffined, and unknown. The idea is man cannot do any harm to ocean, but ocean can cause destruction of human beings. Even his Leviathan ships, that very big ships of arms appear like clay toys tossed into the turbulent waves. Man cannot extend his empires beyond seashore. Assyria, Greece, Rome, and Carthage had seen many tyrants and obeyed the strange slave or savage. That is, ocean provided opportunity and means to develop great kingdoms on the seashore. And the examples have been given of the four civilizations, Assyria, Greece, Rome, and Carthage. They were destroyed with the passage of time as they were on the earth, but the sea remained unchanged. These empires rose and fell, but the sea remained always unchanged. The poet has loved the ocean from his boyhood. If the ocean has a terror for him, it was mixed with pleasure. It was a pleasant fear. It was the fascination of terror for him that drew him. He has trusted his life to it. He has sported on his bosom when he was a boy. Byron says that his task is now ended and his theme is left as an echo. The idea is Byron was a lame fellow. He could not enjoy other manly sports. He was well versed or a skilled swimmer. He enjoyed swimming on the surface of the sea. From his boyhood, it was his fascination. And now, towards the end of the poem, he says his task, that is, he has completed his poem. It is time for the charm of prolonged dream composition of the poem to end. Means he was under the impact of the composition of poem, material of the poem, but now it is time that that impact should come to an end. The poet realizes that he is changed from what he was. But poet says that when he started writing or beginning in the beginning of the poem, he was a different person, and after the completion of the poem, he was a different person. Addressing the reader, the poet says that any reader who has gone through his whole poem, that is, who has read his whole complete poem, must have mentally lived with the hero of the poem. Naturally, mentally, he has been under the impression of the hero during his long journey of hero. The poet feels that if the reader has remembered a single idea or experience of the poet, he has not torn his shoes in vain during his long, hard, and tiresome journey. That is, his hard work has not been in vain. The poet means that he who has read his complete poem and remembers any of his experiences, his labor in reading the poem is not wasted. The poet bids farewell and says that the pain and the anguish which suffered are of the pilgrim, but that is of the poet, of the poet. It is for the readers to draw necessary moral after going through the poem. The poem is written in Spenserian stanza, which consists of 8 iambic pentameter lines followed by 1 Alexandrine, that is a 12 syllabic iambic line, and has rhyme pattern AB, ABB, CB, CC. Melody, directness, and energy are important qualities of the poem. Matthew Arnold says of the Byron that he was the greatest elemental power in English of since Shakespeare. Byron's lyric has a characteristic dignity which is compatible with the description of the rolling, tumultuous sea. That is, sea is moving on. It keeps on doing its activities. And Byron's poem is in accordance with its moment. The first stanza clarifies his attitude. He is rapturous over the scenes of uproarious seas where mightiest among mighty appear helpless and weak like a drop of rain and buffeted by waves. It is very clear that human beings are powerless. They have no comparison as far as power is concerned with the sea. They are just a drop of rain. Human beings are so weak, so helpless before the power of ocean that they stands no comparison at all. He sinks into thy depths with bubbling grow. If sea creates situation, human beings is drowned. He cannot come out. He has to die with no other option. Similarly, the image of the sea waves spurning the ill-fated human beings from the surface of the skies, where he severs in playful spray, howling shows man as meek and puny and insignificant and at the mercy of more powerful force. In human beings, who is regard to that he has invented so much powerful weapons and did this and that, etc. If we make a true analysis, we find human beings stands nowhere as comparison to the ocean. He is weak, puny, that is very small and insignificant, and even at the mercy of the powerful force, that is sea. The image is grand, startling, sublime, and almost Miltonic in attitude. In this poem, we have a purity of diction, lucidity of expression, clarity of expression, fastidiousness, choice of most appropriate words, means exact words. All this reminds us of the refined art of Tennyson, the great Victorian singer, poet laureate of Victorian age. The marvel of the poem is the simplicity of its language and careful avoidance of a single epithet or expression for the sake of mere decoration or elegance of its style. What the poet wants to say is this, that the the poet has, or we can say, the poet has used only so many words which were necessary. He has not used unnecessary words. He had to say what he wanted to say in the fewest possible words. Thank you very much.